Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber with Everyone Loves Guitars, and we're here today with my homie from New York, Tim Quick. Tim's a New York City-based guitar player and a composer, and he's best known for his guitar work on NBC's Jesus Christ Superstar live concert with John Legend, Sarah Bareilles. I know I'm probably messed it up, Sarah. I'm sorry. Bareilles. Is that right?
Bareilles, I think.
Bareilles, okay. And Alice Cooper, as well as the Broadway musical School of Rock, where he also serves as a substitute conductor. And you can find him performing there until the show closes on January 20th for this season. He just finished a really cool summer tour playing guitar and other stringed instruments for the Bacon Brothers. And from 2011 to 2013, he played guitar for R&B disco legend Gloria Gaynor, including her 2013 Grammy-nominated album, We Will Survive. He was a guitar instructor at the National Guitar Workshop for 8 years. As a composer, his music is also regularly heard on dozens of television networks, including the History Channel, Discovery Channel, BBC TV, A&E Network, Lifetime Network, Animal Planet, and ABC Family Network, and he's also scored several award-winning short films. He holds a master's certificate in orchestration for film and TV from Berklee College of Music, a bachelor's degree in music business and jazz studies from William Patterson University, and he was selected for both the 2014 ASCAP NYU Film Scoring Workshop and the 2014 BMI NYU Commercial Music Workshop. Man, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Tim. I know you're a busy guy.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it, Craig.
Oh, you're welcome. So let's talk about your most recent gig. You just finished a summer tour with Kevin and Michael Bacon, also known as the Bacon Brothers. Is a situation like this any different than any other tour simply because of the star power of Kevin?
Yes and no. The Bacon Brothers band's been around for a long time, which a lot of people don't realize that they've been around for 20, 25 years doing this. They put out over 8 records and tour almost every year. So in that sense, it's a fully running band that's done this a bunch. They have a great crew and have played a lot of these venues repeatedly and such. The thing that's kind of different, which doesn't directly affect me, but that's definitely different about this band, is that although they've been around for so long, a lot of people only know of Kevin, know Kevin Bacon, and a lot of people come to the show because they want to see what Kevin Bacon's doing. And they don't really know the music. Whereas if you were out on tour with, Guns N' Roses, everybody knows all those tunes, or whatever band it is. They go because they want to hear the music. And they also probably are fans of the performers. But in this situation, a lot of the audience is going to check out Kevin Bacon, and then they don't really know the music. So that's kind of, the Bacon Brothers have said that that's really kind of cool because they can kind of do whatever they want, really. But because they've been doing it for so long, they do actually have some really dedicated and really great fans, and a lot of people do know the music. And particularly their last record that they released in June has been getting some airplay on Sirius XM radio and some other radio stations. So there's kind of that mix of you're not playing really with an audience where everyone's singing along to all the songs, but there are some. If you're looking through the crowd, there are definitely some fans that are singing along and know the tunes. So that's kind of the only unusual aspect of it, or whatever, is that it's that. And one of the fans actually said it to me, told me, or said it best, and said that you come to the Bacon Brothers show to see Kevin Bacon, and you come back to hear the music, because they really are talented guys. They really have fantastic songs. The band is a killer band, and we put on a really good show, and it's a lot of fun. So people, that's how they end up, getting their fan base. But certainly the Kevin Bacon name brings in a lot of people,
sure,
which is great.
Well, too, they have to be decent, because you can't make 8 albums and still be touring it I mean, if you suck,
exactly.
I mean, that's
good. Nobody would bother coming, and word would get out. But it's the opposite. They are really good, and word has gotten out. And I know that Kevin and Michael have said that it's kind of a blessing and a curse of having that Kevin's name there, because a lot of people don't give him credit because they think, he's just an actor doing whatever he's doing. But he's a really talented songwriter and a really good singer and good musician. And his brother is the same thing. He's a really talented songwriter and singer and musician. So and they're hardworking guys. They've been doing it for years, and I've listened back to some of the early catalog stuff and the new stuff, and you can hear that they've definitely progressed and gotten better. Not to say that the bad stuff is not good, because it was really good, and we do play a handful of those songs. But I definitely have the utmost respect for those guys for what they do.
Very cool, man. And, I think how you do one thing, I find anyways, how you do everything. And you look at the work ethic that the guy brings to the table as a professional actor. Mm-hmm. That usually that carries, like I said, how you do one thing is how you do everything. You don't work really hard at one thing and then you're kind of, slouchy at another thing. You're pretty intense. You're pretty intense at everything you do.
Yeah. No, they're definitely driven guys that work hard at everything that they do, and it shows for sure.
Did you have to learn 8 albums worth of material to do this gig?
No.
I'm sitting there thinking, man, that's got to be
that would have been crazy.
Even if it was EPs, that'd be 50 songs. I'm like,
yeah, it would be a lot. No, fortunately, they actually were on tour. They released their record, I think, in early June, and they were actually on tour already. And for various reasons, they did 3 weeks, then they were off for 2 weeks, and then they did 4 weeks. And for various reasons, they had to make the change. And I was brought in for the last 4 weeks of the tour. So they already had a set of tunes of 25 songs or whatever that they were doing. So I just had to, I was given those songs and the set list and everything, and kind of told what instruments to play on various ones. And then, but it was, so I didn't have to learn 8 albums, thankfully, but it was kind of a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
And it was, I had 2 weeks from the day I got the confirmation that, yes, this is happening, to the day that the bus left on tour. So it was, kind of juggling, learning all the tunes and getting ready to go on tour and figuring out the home life stuff and making sure everything was covered and under control and whatnot. So
that's a lot of the behind the scenes work that I think the general public isn't aware of, especially for sidemen, right. Where you got to come on in 2 weeks, you got to learn 30 songs, let's say, and different instrumentation on each songs. And it's not just like, oh, you're learning the songs, each song has its own nuance, and, and then you got to pick that up within a night or two as well, the subtle differences.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they were really great in that they gave me, the current board mix to listen to. So I was making sure I was learning the right arrangement, but, and it was also one of the most appealing things about this gig for me is that I got to do, as I say, other string things. It wasn't just electric. It was electric guitar, it was acoustic guitar, it was 12-string acoustic guitar, mandolin, ukulele, harmonica, and backing vocals, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's a dream gig for a guy like me, because I grew up constantly acquiring things and wanting to play different instruments and stuff. And, my mandolin has sat on the wall for, 2 years because I haven't really played it much.
I was just going to ask you about that. How's your mandolin before the gig versus after the gig?
No, that's for sure. So, and I got to sing and sing background vocals and all that sort of stuff. So it was great, but it was also like, holy shit, I got to learn all this stuff now,
right.
Got to get it all together. So, but it was great. They were really great to work with. And the first couple of shows were certainly a little more, everything went smoothly. I don't think audience picked up anything, but certainly in my mind, I'm like, racking my brain of what's the chord for the bridge coming up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, of course. That's normal.
Yeah.
It's first time you're doing the tunes, man, of course. Yeah. Or second, yeah.
Yeah, but it settled in pretty quickly and everything went really smoothly overall. And I know they were happy, which is great. And I was certainly happy there. So
it's funny. You're saying, remind me of, an interview that came out today is with a guy named Anto Drennan. He's a top sideman in Ireland. And he told me he played with Genesis, and he said the beginning, he had a massive catalog to learn with Genesis. And I think it was like I don't know, second or third practice, and he was still struggling a little bit. And I think it was like Tony Banks screams across the room to him. He goes, "Did you even listen to the fucking songs?" I mean, it's like, and it's not like he's not under enough pressure already, but
sure, absolutely. No, and the great thing was, there certainly everybody's been in those situations, and there certainly are players and people that are like that. But I can say that everybody on the tour was super supportive and friendly, cool. And but also like I had my stuff together. I made sure that I was absolutely as prepared as I could be and all that sort of stuff. So it was a lot of fun. It was definitely really, really cool, and I definitely advise, highly recommend, not just because I'm involved in it now, but tell everybody that it's definitely worth coming out and checking out. That they put on a really good show, and as a friend said, it's the best entertainment bang for the buck. So
awesome! Shout out to the Bacon Brothers. Go see them at a town near you, and they go back on tour. Any funny stories from the tour?
There's lots of fun stuff. Nothing super in particular sticks out in my mind as being particularly funny. But I think the funniest thing for me about the whole thing was that when I did there wasn't really an audition. There wasn't really even an interview. We talked, particularly Michael Bacon and I had talked ahead of time, and then we met when they were off, the day that they got off the first leg of the tour. But the funniest thing was that I met with Michael, and we talked and everything. It seemed like it was going to be happening or whatever. He said he would let me know probably the next day. And then I get a phone call like later that day from Michael's assistant, who happens to be his son, and he's like, "Hey man, do you have a couple minutes to FaceTime with my uncle?" And I was like, "You mean Kevin Bacon?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Sure." So like out of nowhere, I'm Kevin Bacon, who's in LA. Like it's it's
kind of weird. Yeah.
I don't generally get starstruck or any of that sort of stuff. And I wouldn't say I was necessarily starstruck, but it's also like holy shit, I'm talking to Kevin Bacon on FaceTime right now. And this is like a dude who I grew up watching,
right.
And stuff. But he's, super cool, laid back, normal, great guy and stuff. So it was good. But there were a couple of those moments where you're like, oh man, I'm sitting on the bus with Kevin Bacon having coffee or whatever. And it's kind of
just because I understand what you're saying, not being starstruck, because I don't get starstruck either. But when you have somebody that's been so prevalent in one context,
right,
and all of a sudden they're in a completely different context that's fairly intimate with you, right. It's just like it's almost like, you see somebody that you work with, and all of a sudden you see them like at a restaurant or something. You're like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Like, "I'm just having dinner, man." Like, what? Same shit. It's just when you see people out of context, I think it's, there's a little trigger, a jump that you're like, you have to make an adjustment. The words and the music don't match for a second.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
That was interesting. So, but all great. So,
let's talk about some of the cool gigs that you've done. And I was curious if you had, if you could maybe talk about either how you got the gig, and also if there's any cool or interesting stories about your experience, good, bad, or otherwise. Let's talk about Gloria Gaynor first, because she's pretty major, in like the dance, music, disco field. I mean, she's legendary, man.
Yeah. She definitely is. She's a fantastic singer, great woman. I really enjoyed working with her. As far as getting the gig, with any of the gigs that I've done, I can kind of go in reverse through my life and trace how I got everything, because it's all connections and networking. I don't really like the term networking, because that kind of sounds like you're forcefully going out and trying to
putting a business card. You have the vision of like shoving business. I know, man.
Exactly. Like, forcing your business card into somebody's hand, or doing your elevator pitch. Cause it's not really like that. It's just, from one gig, I meet somebody, and, you hit it off, and you stay in contact with that person. And I do it genuinely, because I want to stay friends with people that I think are good people.
Yeah.
And so I've, got a great group of friends that are also active and highly successful in the business. And the Gloria Gaynor gig came about because I was working at Rock of Ages, which was a Broadway musical. I knew that that I had heard that she was looking for a guitar player from another guitar player who I was on a different gig with, who was friends with her. So it's all just kind of this, just friends set, keeping in touch with people, and friends say, "Oh, you'd be great for that gig," and that's the same way that I got the Bacon Brothers gig. It's the same way I got the pretty much the same way I got the Jesus Christ Superstar gig. So with Gloria, it was, again, friends had said, "Oh, she's looking for a new guitar player," and I knew I happened to be friends with her bass player, and so it's just kind of how it all fell into place. And then with that gig, and actually with a lot of the gigs that I do, I don't really do auditions. Not that I'm against doing auditions,
sure,
but it just doesn't really oftentimes work out in that sense. It's more of a you get recommended from somebody that's reputable, and if they can check me out on my website or whatever, see that I obviously have certain skills and a background doing this stuff. And then oftentimes the first gig is really the audition.
Yeah.
Gloria, it actually kind of was like that. Like, I got hired for 2 gigs, and they said if it works out, well, great. If not, they were willing to take a chance that the gig might not work out so well, but obviously it worked out because I played with her for years. So that's kind of how that working with her came about. The funniest thing, and I still laugh about this, with that story with that show. Gloria mostly does a lot of travel dates these days, and at the time I was playing with her, so she probably did like 20 shows a year, and we would fly out to wherever the show was, do it that day or the next day, and fly back, type of thing. But
is she out of New York also?
She lives in New Jersey. But,
okay, yeah,
New York based. So we did a gig in Connecticut, and if it was local enough, we drove up there. It was like Mohegan Sun, one of the casinos, sure. And after the gig, we had hotel rooms there, but we could obviously drive home if we wanted to. So I had told the manager that I was going to drive home after the gig at 10:30, 11, whatever. And it's like a 2-3 hour drive. But so I told her I'll drive home, and she's like, "Oh, actually, Gloria wants to go home as well. Would you mind driving her?" And I was like, immediately I think to myself, I'm like, well, first of all, I'm going to drive Gloria Gaynor home, which is hilarious. But I'm not a car guy. Like, my car is like, at the time, it was like a 2002 Hyundai Accent with like 115,000 miles. I mean, tiny, crappy car. Like, not like I'm driving around in like a Lincoln Town Car. And so I was, but I'm not going to say no.
Sure.
I'm not going to drive you home or not. So of course I said yes. So I drove Gloria Gaynor home for 3 hours from Connecticut to New Jersey in my 12-year-old beat up car. And I felt horrible because I was like, I know my car's not comfortable. I know it's not, for me, and I'm, less than half her age or more than but she was super cool, and it was, the conversation never lagged, and we had a good time, and it was a fun story. But
that's really cool.
A little bit, but so that was kind of probably the funniest story of that. But I had a lot of fun playing with her. She was great, and her band was great, and maybe I'll work with them again at some point. But we'll see.
You know what? This is really funny, man, and I haven't thought of this since probably 1990 when it happened. When I graduated college, I was a CPA actually, and I was working downtown at one of the big 6 or big 8 accounting firms at the time. And I had a job, I think, up in somewhere in Westchester, in Yonkers, maybe, not far. I lived in the Bronx, right. And the same thing happened. The partner on the job one night, it was like bitter cold. I mean, like, just New York bitter cold winter. And he goes, "Hey man, I need a lift." And I was driving like a 1977 Datsun B210 with 150,000 miles. Same deal. It was just and I get in the car, and I start it, and he goes, "Well, aren't we going to go?" I said, "No, man, I got to warm it up." I remember I felt like this big, there's a partner on the engagement, and I'm just like the first year kid on the job, and it's just it's really funny. So I have literally been in that exact same experience. And same thing, he was pretty cool about it. I mean, I'm sure he wasn't, but he didn't let me know. Right. At least polite about it. So. Yeah. How about the School of Rock, the Broadway musical, which you're still in?
Well, as we said before, as far as getting the gig, again with the way Broadway works. Broadway is very, very regulated, a lot of unions and such, which is great because it protects a lot of the people and musicians and everything. But the way a Broadway show is put together, the band or the orchestra band, whatever you want to call it, is hired by a contractor who his or her job is to, know the musicians, hire the musicians, and then deal with all the payroll stuff and make sure that all that, all that stuff is figured out. But really their job is knowing and putting together the bands, knowing who's appropriate for it, and putting together guys that'll, or girls that will get along and whatnot. So the contractor for that show happens to be a fantastic guitar player in New York as well, who plays on shows. And he and I were friends from just playing around and, knowing other guitar players in the scene. And he knew that one of my strong suits is kind of the rock, technique driven type stuff. So he hired me or he called me and asked if I'd be interested in doing it. And of course I just said yes. And then, that's how I ultimately ended up getting that gig. And then actually is
that Jake by any chance?
It's not Jake. No,
okay.
His name's Michael Aarons. He's a great guitar and great musician, and now becoming a really well-known and respected contractor as well. So, he called me and asked if I'd be interested in. Of course, I said sure, and I got contracted, and I've been doing that for now almost. It'll be 3 years, a little over 3 years when it closes in January. So like 2.5 years at this point. So that's been my main gig for the last 3 years, and it's been awesome. It's been great. A really nice family vibe. The group of guys that are downstairs, and I say downstairs because they built a separate room for the band guys to play in. It's I think 7 of us, 3 guitars, bass drums, 2 keyboards, and a conductor, and we have
3 guitars.
3 guitars, yeah.
Wow, that's a busy guitar show.
It's it's we love it. It's basically it's the show itself. Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote the music for the show, and he worked with Rob Cavallo, who's a very famous producer out in LA, who produced Green Day and a bunch of other big name people, head of Warner Records. He produced it, and he hired actually Tim Pierce, who's a great LA session guy, to do all the guitars. So the music was very guitar driven, and the show, fortunately, Andrew and his staff knew that the show needed 3 guitars to sound authentic for this type of rock music, which is kind of the common rock sound of last like 15 years, is to have, multiple guitar parts going on at once, and having just 2 guys on guitar wouldn't have really filled it out. So they were wise, and they hired 3 of us. So we have lots of fun playing lots of guitar down there. So
is that show closing down period on the 20th of January, or is it just seasonal, or?
Yeah, it's this Broadway run of it will close on January 20th. It's been at the time it will have been 3 years, which is a really good run for Broadway. A lot of shows on Broadway don't recoup, meaning they don't make back their initial investment, and a lot of them don't sadly don't make it more than a couple months or a year or two, other than obviously the huge blockbusters like Lion and Hamilton and whatnot, which there's only so many of those. And I think back to the year that we started, I think the only other Broadway show that opened that same year as us is Hamilton.
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure every other Broadway musical that opened that year has already closed. So we've had a really good run of it, and we're really happy about that. So it'll be closing on the 20th. There's always the possibility that maybe it'll come back to Broadway at some point, but I wouldn't imagine any time in the next couple of years at least.
Sure.
And there's going out.
No,
there's out on the road already. Yeah, but
No, you go. Sorry.
No, that's what I was going to say. There's a tour of it, and then there's some other productions. I think there's a London production and maybe an Australian production of it, but I strictly just do the New York shows.
And I was going to say, for people who aren't familiar with this, I interviewed Jake Ezra Schwartz, who does Broadway full time, and this is an incredibly difficult thing that you guys do, especially in the beginning. You come on, and a lot of these guys come on as subs. Like here, you need to sub, and it's really intense what you have to learn in a very short time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I know Jake. He's a fantastic musician and a great guy. And he and I came up, I think, pretty similarly, because I came up subbing, I think at about the same time he did, and he ended up getting the Book of Mormon show, which has been fantastic for him. And yeah, subbing is how I got my start. Was actually subbing for Joel Hoekstra at.
Oh wow.
That was my first Broadway experience, because I never really thought of myself as I never really thought of going into Broadway, and which is kind of a blessing that it did work out this way, because there's a lot of guys that really do want to get into Broadway and particularly seek it out. And I never really sought it out. It actually kind of very fortunately sought me out, because
that's great.
Joel, when Rock of Ages, that show opened up, Joel, who's a fantastic, I know you know, but for anybody who doesn't know, Joel's a fantastic guitar player, plays with Whitesnake and Night Ranger and Cher and tons of bands. And at the time he was with Night Ranger. But they needed, he needed a sub that could play on stage and, look appropriate playing on stage, as well as do all the hard rock shred stuff that he was doing. And, a lot of the Broadway guys are not used to being on stage. They're used to being in pits. They don't necessarily have the look that the show was looking for. And then on top of that, there aren't a whole lot of guys that do the heavy technique shredding type stuff. So a friend of mine who was playing bass in the show recommended me to Joel, and that's how Joel got in touch with me. And that's how I got my start on Broadway. And after subbing at Rock of Ages a little bit, I started subbing out at other shows like Lion King and Spider-Man and Beautiful. And I think I subbed on something like 10 shows before I ended up getting my own
shit.
Rock. So
not to blow smoke up your ass, but you must have some great chops and sight reading to be able to get in and sub on that many shows. And that's pretty badass, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I definitely do have a certain facility and technical ability for sure for doing the shred stuff, because that's kind of what I grew up listening to and wanting to do. So I spent years practicing all the different techniques and stuff like that as a kid. And then as far as sight reading, what a lot of people don't really realize is that when you're subbing, you don't actually do a whole lot of sight reading, because if you're subbing a show, generally you'll go in and watch the show, sit next to the guitar player at that show, watch what he's doing, and then he'll give you the book, a copy of the music, and you go home and you learn it for a couple of generally a couple of weeks or whatever, and you come back and watch it a couple of times. So you don't really, it's not like you walk in, sit down, and have to sight read the show.
Okay.
You do have to, though, prepare and get up, learn everything and get it all together, because you don't get a rehearsal. Your first rehearsal is a show, and at Broadway is a lot more pressure than like the Gloria Gaynor gig, even though that was obviously high pressure. We were in front of 1,000 people or whatever it was, and you don't want to look bad on stage. And Broadway, you're in a pit with 1,000 people, and you got a conductor looking down at you who's going to point at you when you got to play your thing, and you best be able to do it. Otherwise, the dancer's not going to hit the dance. And you could potentially, I've never done it. I don't really know if I know of anybody that's done it, but you could train wreck the whole freaking show if you get it. So that's a pressure that you got to be aware of and able to deal with for the Broadway stuff. Ironically, though, if you're a chair holder like I am at School of Rock, there you sometimes will be sight reading. Like for School of Rock, none of us got any of the music until the first day of rehearsal. So you walked in, you sat down, and they put the music in front of us, and we had to be able to play the things. So you do need to have obviously a certain facility for reading if you want to continue doing the Broadway stuff.
And you're playing with some seriously talented guys around you too, which ups the ante in terms of pressure as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the Broadway scene is some of the best, for sure. And I know back, 20, 30 years ago or whatever, there was a whole lot more of a studio scene in Broadway. It was kind of almost looked down upon by some of the big.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is what I've heard anyway. I wasn't around, so I'm only kind of rehashing stories that I've heard. But at this point, Broadway is one of the best gigs that you can get, because a lot of stuff is down. So everybody's trying to do it. So you got some of the top players.
Well, you came in and substituted for Joel. That's pretty intimidating as it is.
Joel's a monster, and there's tons of guys like that on all instruments, and girls that we get to play with. So it's really a fantastic environment, and it's also like a really good family vibe, because everybody kind of knows everybody, and it's great to see different faces at different shows.
That's awesome, man. I'm really happy. And so everybody check out Tim quick at School of Rock before they close on January 20th, 2019. Tell him you said hey. And then talk about Jesus Christ Superstar. Any cool stuff happened there, or something weird about how you got that gig?
Lots of cool stuff happened there for sure. The gig was from somebody that I knew. Was actually the same contractor that hired the band for School of Rock. Mike Aarons was also the contractor for Jesus Christ Superstar, so he was in charge of putting the band together. So he Jesus Christ Superstar is a very iconic rock musical. One of the first of its kind, I believe.
Like one of the first rock musicals in general, right?
Yeah. I mean, it came out, I think it was written in 69, and maybe it first came to Broadway in 71 or something like that.
I remember when it came out. That's so funny.
Yeah.
It's because I'm old, but yeah, I remember it was pretty. When they made the media made a very big deal about it at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big. It was Andrew Lloyd Webber's first musical, and a big success, and people have those records still from, it was a very popular album and all that sort of stuff. But it's definitely a rock show for sure. So Mike, I guess immediately thought of me, which is very kind. And also Andrew Lloyd Webber's music staff knew of me from School of Rock. So the conductor for the show, for the Jesus Christ Superstar production that happened in this past April. Although I'd never met him, I knew who he was, and he knew who I was. So I believe that both of them kind of thought of me and talked about having me and asked me if I would do it. And of course I said yes. So again, just goes back to networking, but not shoving your business card in people's face, just being around and doing it for years. The coolest thing about that gig, I mean, obviously it was a huge exposure thing and live television, all that sort of stuff. But for me, one of the coolest things was getting to meet Alice Cooper, because he's just like, a legend. And I guess the coolest aspect of that was that he was just the coolest dude in the world. He
really?
Was super nice, super professional, really friendly, made a point of like walking across the stage and shaking my hand and introducing himself, which is like, it's like, I know who you are, but it's really nice that you're actually coming over and just saying hello.
So that's really cool. That's very cool, man. Do you say, hi, I'm Alice, or do you say, I'm Vincent, or what does he go by?
No, I just goes by Alice. He's like, I'm Alice. And I'm like, I definitely know who you are. And, he was great though. And it was, he was on set a handful of days, so it was nice to chat with him a couple of times, and he was really super cool. So that was kind of like a big highlight for me in that show. And then obviously it was a really good business and like resume thing for me. Not that I have a resume, but certainly that gave me some more notoriety and some more face time for a lot of people, which is great.
That's great, man. Really cool. You've done a lot of TV work. I didn't realize that. How all these the network shows, and I was curious did they call you in to create this music, or is this music you made and licensed to them? What was the situation?
Right. This is talking about the composing aspects of the TV stuff. Yeah. I've been doing composing for picture and for film and TV for probably the last 5 or 8 years. I got more and more into it. And a lot of that music, I started off with a catalog of music that I had written for my education, because I went back to get some training in film scoring and composing for media. So I had written a catalog of, a handful of tracks and stuff like that in various styles. And I ended up connecting with, again, a friend who runs a music licensing company. And I kind of said, hey, if you guys have a need for this stuff, here's, some stuff that you could potentially pitch. So he said, absolutely. And they took the stuff, they loved it. And then what ended up happening is they began coming to me with assignments of, hey, this TV show or this network is looking for music like this for these shows. Can you come up with some stuff? And I said, sure. So I've been doing it for several years. I haven't done a whole lot of it this past year because I've been really busy with the guitar stuff. But there was definitely a time where I was spending, every day I'd be writing, a new track or a new cue for television stuff, and then submitting it to them, and they would then license it to these various TV shows. And it's kind of a cumulative thing. I don't know how many tracks I have at this point, but it's at least several hundred.
That's wonderful, man. As a business guy looking at the music business from the outside, I think anybody that's not pursuing this is crazy, because it's a great, and it's not for everybody. Obviously, you have to be a really talented writer, and you have to be able to write on spec. And I know they'll come back with wacky requests to you, like, make this more purple, or, make this more, a little vague, but it's the only way to get recurring revenue pretty much now.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I went into it.
Yes.
I got more into it, was so that I built up my own personal studio of gear and recording stuff. And had done and do and still do, recordings for people and did some production stuff. But there's just not a whole lot of income revenue available that can really, become sustainable doing that. At least that I found it and for myself. So I got more into the composing side, which I had always written music, whether it was just for fun or for bands or whatever. So it wasn't like a far stretch or anything like that, but I wanted to be able to do it and, make some money off of it as well as creatively be fulfilled. So I'm really, happy to get into that market as well.
Awesome, man. Yeah. And this is a very smart thing to do. And nothing's wasted. The thing is, you put out a catalog, you may have one song sit dormant, and then all of a sudden it gets picked up, and, that'll pay your bills for the next 5 years. You just don't know how that's going to work.
Sure. Absolutely. So,
and you mentioned something a second ago. So I have a question I want to ask you. That you studied music business and jazz in undergrad, and then you went on to get advanced studies in basically scoring.
Right.
What prompted you to do this at that time? And I had a question, hindsight 2020, was this a smart thing to do? Obviously. But what was your thought process? Because that, I give you a lot of credit. That's a lot of, that's super ambitious to go back and, after you get an undergrad degree in music business and jazz, which is not like, fogging a mirror. It's really tough. And then to go back and get some more education. That's really cool.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. The undergrad degree that I got, I was really happy with it. It was very diverse. I was able to kind of tailor it around. I got like a little bit of music business education. I got just regular business education, which was really important because a lot of guys just don't have a business sense. About even just simple common sense things that fortunately I was able to pick up from the school. And then I got all the music education class stuff, like lessons and theory and all that sort of stuff. But I guess, so I did that for my undergrad, and then I kind of came out to the scene. I was doing a lot of teaching and playing in bands, and then ultimately building my side band career and then falling into Broadway and all that sort of stuff. And I as I said before, I wanted to get more into the composing side of things, just to have another thing to do, another way of making some money. And also just to fulfill that kind of creative side, because I don't write my own music for myself. I don't have a Tim Quick project or Tim Quick albums or anything. Not that there's anything wrong with that, and maybe I will do it at some point, but I just haven't been really driven to do that. I was always just more looking to. No,
I totally get it, because it's like you're not into being you don't want to be an artist. You want to get your fulfillment is gained from playing guitar. And let's face it, man, in today's environment, what are you going to do? Spend 10 grand on the conservative side to make a record, and then like what?
Exactly.
I totally get it, man. I totally get it.
Yeah, and I did and it's not to knock it, because some people really want to do it, and they push that, and they become they get a creative fulfillment out of that. For me, I was in bands with my own original music, doing that, did the touring thing, and I mean, we never made a dime. Yeah. We lost money. And it's not about I don't want to focus on the money, because it's not about the money. It's about the fulfillment. But the problem with doing that was that, for me, was that it ended up being like 80% business, and 20% music. Yeah. And because I'd be constantly spending time dealing with booking things or promoting things or PR things or whatever it was. And I got into music because I wanted to play music, and I wanted to play whatever. And switching into the sideman role or doing this composing for a picture, it's more like 80% music, 20% business. No matter what you're doing, you're going to have, you should have some common business sense, skills, and chops, and you need to pay attention to the business side of things. Otherwise, you're going to get ripped off, and you're going to, just not be able to sustain a career. But this way, writing music for film, TV, they come to me. I can write basically what I want within that genre, and then submit it, and they take care of the other business stuff. Whereas if I was writing, my own record and trying to promote it, I'd be spending a lot of time probably promoting my own record, which for people that really, seek that and want that creative option and outlet and fulfillment, then that's great. But for me, it wasn't really what I wanted to do. Yeah. So that's kind of why I got into this stuff. So anyway, all that to wrap around back to what you asked, going back to school, I'm very organized and methodical about how I do things. And I wanted to be sure that I knew I could do all, anything that was thrown at me and was doing it right. Not that there's really a right way, but I wanted to really brush up on my skills.
Knowledge is power, man.
Yeah. And exactly. Find out what current people were, current composers for media, how they were doing things, what they were using and whatnot. So that's why I went back and got a certificate in how to do that sort of stuff and took some classes so that me personally, I felt most confident that yes, I can tackle whatever it is that somebody throws at me, which then just boosts my confidence enough to help push myself out into that world.
Good for you, man. I was just shocked that it's really that you knew back then that that's something you wanted to do. Usually, people sort of fall into the film stuff later. It sounds like you kind of were. How did you become aware of this? I guess is really the question.
Ironically, I mean, I got in. I loved listening to soundtracks when I was in like high school, like film soundtracks. And I had a great music theory music teacher in my school. Who was into that sort of stuff. And I grew up in, the era of John Williams. He's still around doing fantastic work, but I grew up in that era of Star Wars and Indiana Jones and also like all these like iconic film scores that I loved watching movies as a kid. So I know all those things. So I was just always peripherally interested in that stuff and some composing stuff when I was in high school. But I never really pushed it. I think partly I never really got into it because I was intimidated. Because, as a guitar player, we don't do orchestral music. We don't, we don't even sit in a band. We don't even sit in an orchestra or a band, really, a band in the sense of like, a woodwind band in high school or whatever.
Trumpets and brass and woodwinds, yeah.
Exactly.
Strings.
So I never really got much, and my education in college didn't really have any of that stuff either, just the way that it worked out. So I never really got into the scoring aspect, but I was always interested in it. And finally I was just like, well, I'll just do it, like, tackle it and get into it. And I took the education stuff and learned all the different instruments and the transpositions and all the other stuff to be able to write for that sort of stuff. I've fortunately been able to work my way into a little bit of the market and even to this day, I'm still composing for different projects, which is great.
That's awesome, man. I'm really happy for you. Anybody looking to get some soundtracks, call Tim. There you go, man. I know a lot of people listening to this like soundtracks. You said you enjoy soundtracks. What off the cuff 3 soundtracks that you like? Oh man,
soundtracks. You can't do film score without John Williams. So certainly, Star Wars, Jaws, Indiana Jones, any one of those 3 would be great. Alan Silvestri is another phenomenal guy. He did Back to the Future, all those films. And that soundtrack is just ingrained in my mind because I watched that movie so many times as a kid. And then I really like a lot of the stuff Brian Tyler does. He's a current film score composer who's done, he did a lot of he did some of the Iron Man and Avengers and some of those films. And he kind of has this kind of a particular sound that's really good and modern that I really like. So I would say probably, I don't know, like one of the Avengers scores that he did. So
cool, man. Thank you. When I think of soundtrack, I'm not clued in on the soundtracks like that. I always think of scores like where they have, what's it called? It's not a soundtrack maybe when they have songs in movies, or is that still called a soundtrack, but it's not a score?
They still call that a soundtrack. They don't really some movies do have that as a score. They'll have just use pop songs or whatever, which has been done back into you can find movies like that back in the 60s.
Sure.
But there's the type of stuff that I do is more of the actual like score.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's orchestral, sometimes it's rhythmic, sometimes it's guitar driven. There's a lot of different varieties to those soundtrack, to those scores. But yeah, to answer your question, they do call them soundtracks, and I would actually be probably the last person to know about like what's popular on of the actual songs and stuff like that, at least in the current day. So
I have two soundtracks I really like. One is it's an older movie called Dead Presidents, man. It's all funk stuff, funk and soul, and like 70s R&B, like the good era of funk. And then what was that movie with Martin Scorsese's movie, Goodfellas? I always like that. The iconic scene where they have they play Layla, the piano, the outro. So it's cool.
Yeah, sure.
Are you working on anything now that it's got you excited, or anything coming up that you're looking forward to?
Well, I mean, I just got back from the road it was about a week ago or less than a week ago that I got back. So I'm back at School of Rock, which is great because it's I had a great time on the road, but it's also fun to have a job to come back to, and B, come back and connect with these friends and stuff. And the fact that we're closing in January also kind of puts a little more of a, like, not sentimentality to it, but that it's
bittersweet.
Yeah, a little bittersweet. So going to be playing there a bunch. I also conduct the show a handful of times a month, so I'll be doing some conducting there. And then on the composing side, I'm doing I just got asked to do some more tracks for some television shows. So
I'm man.
Working on that over the next 2 weeks. So that's kind of the stuff I'm excited about. And I'm also excited to take a vacation, which I'm doing next month.
Good for you, man. Going any place? You just taking time off, or you going away somewhere?
Yeah, just taking time off with the family. My wife and I have gone to Newport probably once a year, about once a year for the last 6 years. We always stay at the same bed and breakfast. It's the owners that have kind of become friends, and we just love it up there, the history, and it's just a little more laid back, and it's on the water, and it's just a really nice area, Newport, Rhode Island. So, you know what, man, I'm going to make a note. I want to ask you about that afterwards because I've been wanting to go there. Yeah, it's great. Definitely recommend it for sure.
It's nice and cool up there. Also,
yeah, especially for you because you're down in Florida. So,
well, any place is cooler than here, man.
Exactly.
Where'd you originally grow up?
Well, I was born in Manhattan, but I grew up. For the first 8 to 10 years, I was in Pennsylvania, in the Poconos is what they call it, in a really, really small town. I think it had one traffic light the entire time I lived there, and maybe now they're up to 2, I think. But then I moved with my mother to Central Jersey, and I pretty much have been in New Jersey most of my life. I still live in New Jersey. I consider myself New York City based because I'm right outside the city, and I work in New York. But
sure,
basically, I'm in New Jersey. So yeah.
What was your childhood like growing up?
It was not very musical until I started playing guitar. My mother played. We had a baby grand piano in the house. My mother, I guess I shouldn't say it wasn't very musical because there was music around, but it wasn't I didn't come up from a family where mom and dad are professional musicians, and my Uncle Joe was a whatever player or anything like that, because there wasn't really any musicians per se in the house, although my mother did play and still does play piano, and she sang in the choir, and so she would, I guess, always kind of be singing to me and whatnot, especially as a little kid. So it wasn't super musical until I got a guitar, and I got a guitar probably because Back to the Future, that whole scene where Marty McFly flies across the room, and at the end does the Johnny B. Good stuff. That movie is very ingrained in my head, as I've already pointed out once in this in the interview. So I just thought, guitar was cool, and especially at the time, MTV was king, and everybody was watching music videos and hard rock and stuff.
Do they still play music videos on MTV? What do you mean?
I don't even know. I have no idea. I doubt it. I think last time I watched TV, it was nothing but reality TV. So anyway, when I got a guitar, what prompted me to get it was my best friend got a guitar, and since he got one, I got one, and we played and jammed, so to speak, at the time and everything. And now he's a doctor, and I'm a guitar player. So.
That's really cool, man. Do you have any brothers or sisters, and did they play music?
I have an older sister who played flute in high school and sang in the choir, but again, nothing crazy. Although she did, I had pretty good taste in music, so I listened to some of her CDs and cassettes and stuff like that when I was growing up. And then I also have a younger half sister who's like 15 years younger than me, who's great, but we didn't really grow up together very much. And she does not play any instruments, as far as I know.
What kind of work did your folks do when you were growing up?
My father was, who actually just recently retired. He was he built his own company, and actually an iron restoration business.
Holy shit!
He's kind of like he's very much like a jack of all trades. Was very involved in town politics, and police, and fire department, all that sort of stuff. But he ran his own iron business and opened up some various other business. Very entrepreneurial, but also very hands-on. He and my mother built the first house that I lived in. Very cool. Scratch. So he's always getting his hands dirty doing stuff like that. And my mother worked at a hospital. She was a kind of a lab technician and computer technician as well. That sounds like super manly. I own an iron restoration. That's like very freaking masculine. He's very much that, owns every tool and knows how to use it, kind of, and including chainsaws and all the other crazy stuff. He's very handy for sure, which is great when you're a homeowner. So I interviewed someone yesterday. They were telling me that they got to meet Jason Statham, the actor. Sure. Yeah. And I was like, fuck, what was that like? I mean, like he's the ultimate masculine, like dude, like, I said, was it, and he goes, and I rang his bell and I'm like, did he like, you wait right there? Like, what was that like? Yeah. He goes, he's really cool. Really. He said he's very musical actually. So, which I have it's hard to flip that switch to see Jason Statham walking around with a guitar or something like that. But apparently he does. That's his thing, man. That's pretty cool. Yeah. That'd be interesting. Yeah, I'd be interested in that too. Right. And his dad is a singer. Oh, no way. Yeah. Wow. So I could just see like this, like a Tom Jones looking English, and a 75-year-old studly Jason Statham singing, with gold chains around his neck or something like that, And he said his dad was just like that. He had like a gold medallion on there and stuff. So it was It was very funny to hear that. It's hilarious. When did you know you wanted to play guitar for a living? I know I definitely knew by the time I was in 8th grade. I started playing guitar when I was in 6th grade. And I should really say, we joke around about this. We being, current friends or whatever now, we joke around that, there's guitar owners and there's guitar players. I was a guitar owner in 6th grade. I couldn't play the thing worth anything. I got it and I thought it was the coolest thing. I got it at Christmas. I thought it was the coolest thing for like 4 days. And then when I realized I had to actually like practice to be able to play the damn thing, I was just like, my interest in it pretty much dwindled. But that obviously took a turn because, believe me, I've definitely spent my time practicing. I would say after about 6 months after getting it and getting my butt kicked around by my friend who naturally had a great ability and was, playing songs and doing all sorts of cool stuff, I finally got sick of getting my butt kicked around. And I was like, all right, I'm going to sit down and practice. And I started practicing. I think every day since then, I've probably practiced guitar with a handful of exceptions. I knew for sure when I was in 8th grade, I knew I wanted to do it. And the reason why it sticks in my mind is because where I grew up, after 8th grade, you would go to the high school. So there, at the end of 8th grade, you would have like the meeting with the guidance counselor to select classes or whatever for your freshman year of high school. And my mom and I met with the counselor and he said, oh, you're doing really good in science and math. Let's put you into advanced science and advanced math for high school. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And the guy's like, why not? And I was like, well, because I'd be doing a lot more homework and whatever. I want to have time to practice guitar. And he's just like, well, you'll probably change your mind. And I was like, no, I want to play guitar. And they ended up putting me in, like, we split the difference. I was in one advanced and one not or whatever. But I knew at that time, I was like, I'm going to play guitar and I don't want to waste my time. I'll do what I do in school to get good grades and get my degree and everything. But I'm not going to bust my butt in physics when I know I want to play guitar for a living. So, man, you sound like you've made some pretty good decisions at a younger age than most people are able to make good decisions. What do you attribute that to? Well, thank you for that. I think, I'll point out my good decisions. I don't point out my bad decisions.
But we're all gonna have tons of those.
Exactly.
But at least you got some good ones in there.
Sure. I mean, I definitely made some good decisions. I have to attribute to my parents. They they raised me well. My parents actually divorced when I was young, but they're both hardworking, driven people, and I guess that they definitely instilled a lot of values and a lot of like work ethic and stuff like that into me, which is great. Which I definitely still apply and we'll try to instill into my own child. So I think that, and I think also because of my parents, they went through a pretty ugly divorce at the time. It kind of forced me to be more mature, and I think that. I've just always kind of had that maturity thing going, or at least I did when I was young and stuff. Obviously, I still have it, but one would hope that a person at my age is mature. So,
yeah, no, I don't. I think, yeah, but those decisions, to having the confidence to tell the teacher, no, I want to play guitar, and the wherewithal to know that, if I have this extra work, it's going to compromise. That's what I think was the smart thing there. The extra, like, that's the wisdom there to know that, I don't want to do this, not because I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this because what I really want to do is this, and I need time. And the opportunity cost in a sense. That's where I think that was really impressive, man.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I mean, I never really thought about it too much, too deeply, but yeah, you're certainly right.
Yeah, 8th grader to have that kind of wherewithal and awareness. Yeah, I think that's incredible. Yeah, very much, man. Obstacles. What are some of the biggest or the bigger obstacles you've had to overcome throughout your journey here, either personally or music related or business related?
I can't really think of. I mean, there's certainly been obstacles. I think the biggest obstacle has been myself, and just figuring out, making the right decisions. Obviously, we just talked about, making good decisions and bad decisions and stuff. And I've certainly made my share of good and bad. Nothing, there's nothing drastically bad or anything like that. But I think it took me a while to realize that that if I can't do something, there's nothing wrong with not being able to do something or having questions, but you just got to ask the questions. And although I was very good at dictating certain paths and stuff like that, there were some things that I shied away from musically because I was intimidated by them for whatever reason. And it was age and stuff like that and whatever. And finally, I just kind of realized it was just like, I truly believe that anybody can do anything within, laws of physics and within reason. Like, I'm never going to be able to fly without, a plane or whatever. But any, guitar related thing, if I put my mind to it, I'm sure I can do it. That doesn't mean I'm going to do it. Like, I know jazz is not my strong suit, and it never has been. If I wanted to be a fantastic jazz guitar player, I'm 150% confident I could if I put in enough time to do it. But I'm not driven to do that. It's never been really my favorite style. I can play, a bit of it and all that sort of stuff. But there were certainly some things that, some styles or some things or whatever, like even the film scoring, stuff like that. I was always interested in it, but as I said, I didn't grow up in that band woodwind orchestra environment. So I never learned it, and I never got into it until, like 10 years ago, when I probably could have gotten involved in it back in college, but I was intimidated to ask, how to get into it, because I didn't know at the time, such and such. And there's a lot of, especially in the college world and whatnot, the education world, there's a lot of students that are very competitive, and even in the guitar world or whatever, I'm sure there's some guys that are competitive and whatnot. Again, I think the biggest obstacle is just gaining my own confidence and being able to say to myself, well, it's okay that I don't know how to do this, but I can figure it out.
Yeah.
And ask, find the right people and put in the time, and you can do anything.
Well, the good thing is too, you've done enough of that now, or you've done some of that now, so that, and this is what, like my kids, for example, they're 28 and 26. My older one kind of gets it. My younger one's just starting to get, well, I have an 18-year-old too, but, if you're afraid to do something and you never do it, you're never going to get the confidence to then do that next thing. You know, it's getting through that fear and doing, and even if you don't do it successfully, the fact that you made an effort generally will give you some confidence that, hey, I tried it, and let me come back again, maybe the wrong time or whatever, just wrong thing. But, yeah, that's cool. Very cool, man. Thank you. Yep. It was funny. Like my younger son went back to college, man. He's 26 and just enrolled, and he goes, you know, he goes, I'm not that organized, and I'm bothered by that. And I said, man, you know, organization is not like DNA. I said, it's not like you don't have the organizational gene, man. It's like, you know, like if you said it, you want, like, I can't be 6 feet tall because that's genetic, but you can learn to be organized, you know? And so I agree with you. There's nothing that anybody can't do if they really want to do. I mean, barring physical, unfortunate limitations or something.
Stuff. If there's anything you want to do, barring that, you know, physical stuff or whatever it is, you can do it. Yeah. You just got to put in the time and the effort. Like, I didn't come up in a super musical family. And like I said, you know, my best friend and I got a guitar the same year. He immediately started sounding great, and I had to work my ass off. But you can do that.
Yeah.
You know, you put in the time. And I think that anybody that, you know, there's a certain amount of talent, natural talent that people have, but there's also, you know, you just got to work for it.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you, man. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about gear for a few minutes, Tim.
Sure.
What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other two guitars would round out your top three?
Well, let's see. I mean, I love Gibsons. So I've got a small selection of great Gibsons that I love. But my go-to guitar is actually a Michael Tuttle Classic S is what it is. Michael's a fantastic builder out of LA or Southern California. And he built me a custom Strat style guitar with a humbucker, and we kind of worked a little bit on the neck to make sure that it kind of felt a little bit more like a Gibson than a Fender. So that's kind of my jack of all trades guitar, and it's the best electric guitar that I have. It just he just has the mojo and the skills to build a fantastic guitar, and a handful of players know his stuff and are using them.
HSS is it? So humbucker and two.
Yeah, the humbucker, HSS, yeah, humbucker and then two single coils. Michael's built guitars for Jeff McElwain, who I know you interviewed.
Yeah.
He's turned me on to them. So his guitar is kind of my number one. And he's actually going to be building me a Telly soon, which I'm super psyched about. And then after that would be probably my Les Paul and my Gibson SG. You know, those are three of my favorites.
What kind of Les Paul is it?
It's a like a 1990, I think, Gibson Les Paul Standard flame top.
So it's heavy though. It's before they chambered out.
It's not chambered. No,
yeah.
It's solid. It's you know, it's the guitar I use for Jesus Christ Superstar. I shouldn't say flame top. It's a sunburst or tobacco burst.
So it's like that. It's like that classic, if you can see that sort of.
Yeah, it's like a classic, but the standard. I think the classics were chambered, hollowed out a little bit.
No, I mean the tobacco. Tobacco
burst.
Yeah.
Same as what you're. Not that anybody else can see what we're talking about. But,
I'm just showing Tim. I have a classic, a tobacco burst. Les Paul classic.
My Les Paul looks almost identical to that, to be honest. So,
yeah, that's what I figured. And then and your SG, you have what kind of?
It's an SG standard, I guess, from like 2002. Although I had a Bigsby put on it a couple of months ago for extra fun and extra pizzazz. It just looks badass. So
it does. That's cool, man. Is your SG have a thick neck or a thin one?
It has a thick one, yeah. And I like that. It's comfortable. It's not like a 57 reissue Les Paul or whatever, where those necks are like freaking baseball bat. I don't know how people
hold up your hand. Let me see your hand. Oh, you have pretty big hands for sure, man.
They're pretty good, but they're not Joel Hoekstra hands. Joel's his guitars. He's got like super heavy strings and
big thick baseball bat necks.
Yeah. So, but yeah, thicker necks just tend to feel better and sound better. But then there is a point where they just get too thick, and then it's just uncomfortable.
I'm a small guy. I'm only 5'9". I have average size hands, so I can't play a thick neck. I need a thinner neck. It literally doesn't fit me, you know.
Right.
So, I like that one because it's like a 61 reissue and it's really thin. It's just perfect. I love them. The SGs are just great guitars. I really love them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I love the Gibsons. Pretty much this is Gibson and Tuttle for me at this point. So,
any cool stories behind how you got any of your guitars?
Nothing super exciting. I mean, I've gotten a couple of them from, from trades, from friends that had guitars and needed, producing or composing or session work or something like that. But nothing, particularly jumps out at me. Although I should say that there are a handful of companies like Michael Tuttle and Taylor and Gibson that I've worked with, and they've been very good to me. And I really appreciate their support, and they make fantastic instruments. So
thank you, man. That's cool of you. Any players who influence your playing that people might be surprised to hear?
I don't think anything, well, from a guitar perspective, I don't think there's anything really surprising. I had a lot of really good teachers when I was young. Jeff McElwain was a teacher of mine and mentor of mine for a while, which he's fantastic. Terry Sierick, Chris Hamill are these, somewhat unknown guys that are monster musicians. But then I was always kind of driven towards like the studio scene and the guys that played on a lot of the studio records like Steve Lukather, and also Carl Verheyen is a monster musician. And I took a couple lessons from Carl years ago.
Out in California.
Yeah, out in California.
Yeah, I got to get a hold of him. I was introduced to him, and I got to get him on the show.
Carl's a monster, really, really great player. So I think those are probably some of the influences that would be interesting for people.
Do you remember your first record, or you probably grew up in the era of CDs
that I bought?
Yeah, that was that you bought. Yeah. Did you grow up with records or probably CDs?
I grew up with cassettes actually. I think it was the era between records and CDs. So cassettes. The first one that I bought I was given like Michael Jackson's Thriller when I was really little, and or not really little. I guess I was young or whatever. And I remember I wore that thing out. Like literally, we got to the point where it got all warbly, and I had to like get another record. Or another cassette. But the first like cassette that I know I remember going out and buying myself was actually, I think, Def Leppard Hysteria.
That's funny.
And I listened to, I'm surprised that I didn't wear it out because I listened to it so much. It was it's one of those records that I grew up with that I just thought was so cool. And I still, to this day, whenever I hear it, I think it's such a cool record. So
it's funny. Def Leppard and Journey are playing down here tonight. It just blows my mind that I was listening to them at 10 or 12 or something like that, and they're playing really wild.
I would check it out if I was there, man. Those are two great bands, and they put on. I saw Journey a couple years ago. I've never seen Def Leppard, but I saw Journey a couple years ago, and they put on a great show. So
very cool, man. Desert Island Discs. No particular order, knowing that you could change. What would be your knee-jerk reaction?
This is interesting. Well, I would have to put a John Williams film score collection. Like his greatest.
Oh wow, so you're really into. That's pretty passionate.
I mean, it's great music. He's so good at that stuff. He's a legend, basically. So one of his CDs or compilations, whatever you want to call them. So I got all those hits, and then Def Leppard Hysteria was always fun. And probably like a Steve Vai or Joe Satriani. Probably Joe Satriani, like Surfing with the Alien or something. Those are all.
It's a good album.
It's all stuff that I kind of grew up with. I wouldn't really say I listen to it a whole lot right now, but they bring back good memories and stuff, and they're great records or cassettes, whatever you want to call it. So.
I love that album cover. I was a big comic guy when I was a kid, so that Silver Surfer album cover, man, that was like so cool when it came out, man. I really loved that.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's great stuff.
So, man, what is the the most important thing that you've taken away about yourself over this whole thing, this whole journey you've been on?
Probably two things. One would be the work ethic thing. Just being sure that, I've become very confident that I can, in my abilities and what I can do if I put in enough, hard work. And I feel like, a lot of people sadly don't, realize that and maybe limit themselves or whatever. So definitely the work ethic, and then also just having, in addition to having that work ethic, having a sense of humility and being humble. There's so many egos and people out there that in the entertainment industry and whatever that maybe that are like phenomenal musicians, but if they're not people you want to hang out with or just genuinely good people, I don't want to work with them, and most people wouldn't want to work with them. So I think that just being, just being a good, caring person and whatnot is important for not just music, not just musicians, but just for everybody. So.
Yeah, man, it makes life a lot easier too.
Absolutely.
What do you like most about yourself, man? That's a tough question, I know.
I think that my work ethic and determination, my mother and wife say that I'm incredibly stubborn, in a good way, though they say it's in a good way for the most part. So yeah, I think that and having that drive, has gotten me where I am, and I'm very happy with where I am for sure. So
how about the flip side? Anything you'd like to change?
Anything I'd like to change about myself? I wish I had really good hair. I was never able
You're going to get zero empathy out of me.
There's one thing I could change about myself. I wish I had a full head of hair. No, I can't really think of anything. I mean, there's certainly, I'm always trying to, because of the work ethic, I'm always trying to improve, and any faults, and not just musical, but, personal and relational, and as a father now and everything. So, anything I'm not happy with, I'm trying to work on. Let's put it that way. So
cool, man. How old's your daughter now?
She's 10. Well, she'll be 10 months, like next week.
Awesome. Congratulations on that. Good for you, man.
Thanks.
Best childhood memory.
Oh man. I can't think of any one in particular. I have a lot of fond memories of like family trips, like family ski trips, and I think it would all involve family, just family and friends. Although I had a difficult upbringing in the sense that my parents got separated young, and it was not the best of situations. They made it work, and my mother did a really good job of making it comfortable, and I had, for the most part, I had a lot of fun as a kid, so I'm really happy for that.
That's cool. Is your mom still around?
She is. She actually is. She takes care of my daughter with me like twice a week, and she and I are really close, so we're really happy about that.
That's great. Well, Mom, good work there. Shout out to your mom, because I'm sure I know she'll be listening to this.
Yeah, she probably will.
I'm sure.
Technology behind it, she'll listen to it.
Tell me something about yourself, Tim, that people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
Probably they probably would find it both a little odd and maybe a little surprising. I am very into gardening, and I got specifically vegetable gardening. I put together a whole vegetable garden actually this last year out in the backyard, and
dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. My mother was was into gardening and everything. And we, although I never did it as an adult, I always wanted to. And for various reasons, we finally got property that had space for it. And we put it in, and I love it. It's, we being musicians, we spend so much time indoors in rooms with no windows and whatever. Yeah. And it's just really nice to get outside and play in the dirt a little bit and stuff.
Good for you, man. And you eat some healthy food, man.
Well, and that's the other thing is, my wife and I are very particular about eating healthy and buying organic whenever possible and everything. And organic food is certainly not cheap, unfortunately. So, putting in an organic garden and growing our own stuff has been a really cool thing.
That's great, man. Yeah, I eat really healthy. It's important. I don't understand how people don't, to be honest. I mean, I've been doing it so long, not judging it. It's just like, for me, I couldn't, I just can't, it's like what I do, Right.
No, absolutely. It's very important to us. And, I think it's a very important thing for everybody if they can afford it or find the ways to do it. Yeah.
Only if you're interested in staying alive long and being healthy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Most important thing your dad taught you?
I think the work, well, the work ethic also comes from my mom. But my father is a very driven guy and very entrepreneurial and has a good business sense. That's actually probably what, one of the strongest things that I got from him was the entrepreneurial spirit and the taking business seriously. Even though I'm in an artistic world, you need to take business seriously. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to sustain a career. So that's probably what I got most out of my father.
Let me ask you this. I talk to a lot of guys of all ages that are like, man, I'm just awful at business. So if you had to give them, what's the one thing you would make a recommendation that they learn or get their hands around or get some knowledge and familiarity with from a business situation? And if they want to do more, go ahead. But what's the one thing you'd recommend?
The one thing I'd recommend is it's tough. I mean, there's probably a whole lot of cliches that I'm not even remembering or whatever at this point. But just knowing that business is important and realizing that, and then taking the next step to find whatever those steps are to improve on your business sense. But I think the biggest thing is personality, is how you present yourself in every way is so important. From the way, not just, but definitely including the way you dress, the way you interact with people, the way you follow up with people, the way you don't follow up with people, the way you carry a conversation. There's so many people that can't even carry on a conversation very well without making it all me-centric or not. You need to be able to interact with people and be comfortable with them, because otherwise people aren't going to really want to work with you, even if you're the most fantastic musician in the world. Particularly in my world as a composer, there's not a whole lot of interactions one-on-one. But as a sideman, if you're on the bus, you're going to be living with these dudes for a month. Or if you're playing in the pit at School of Rock, you're going to be sitting down next to those guys 7-8 shows a week for 3 years or whatever. You got to be somebody that people want to hang out with, because otherwise you're bringing down the vibe, and people aren't going to hire you for that stuff. And there's fantastic musicians that I know that don't get hired for gigs because they don't, nobody wants to hang out with them.
Yeah.
Well,
it's interesting that like none of those things are really if you went to business school or business class, they wouldn't talk about any of those things, but I'm glad you mentioned all of them, because I think having the awareness that shit is really business for you guys is probably super important.
Yeah, it is business for us. Obviously, you got to be able to, balance your checkbook and manage your finances, hopefully, or whatever. But your employer is not going to give a crap if you can't balance your checkbook and manage your finances. But your employer is going to care if you can't get along with everybody else in the room, or on the bus or whatever it is. So,
thank you, man.
No problem.
Anything you're still interested in learning how to do, at least right now?
Yeah, everything. Learning to do, just continuing everything that I do. I still practice. I still am trying to improve as a guitar player. I've been, since the Bacon Brothers tour, I've been playing a lot more mandolin and trying to get more into that. And since, improve my singing and improve, I got a chance to play harmonica with the Bacon Brothers, so I want to improve on that. It's, the list is pretty endless. It's, lots of stuff that I want to, try and improve upon.
You got a load of years ahead of you, but so far, what's been the biggest business and the biggest personal win that you've had?
I don't really think of them as wins, because I'm trying to be competitive, but, successful things. This year has been an epic year for me. The fact that I got, if not speaking calendar year, but within this past year, there's the personal aspect of it. My daughter was born. That's the most amazing thing. But on top of that, I got asked to do the Jesus Christ Superstar thing, which was definitely a big, probably the biggest career job of my career so far. And then also getting asked to do the Bacon Brothers tour was definitely a big success. So it's been an amazing year for that stuff. And it's also, on the flip side, it's actually also kind of a little scary because the Bacon Brothers thing is probably not going to be picking up. They're not going to do much anytime soon, I think. And also knowing School of Rock is going to be closing in January. So you kind of have, it's just the ebb and flow of this business.
Yeah.
You can have all this stuff going on at once, and then sometimes it comes apart. But I'm sure that something else will come up and fill those voids, I'm sure.
Oh, it will, definitely. Any bad habits?
Well, ask my wife. She could probably tell you a whole bunch of them, but I think nothing major. I mean, I never got really into drugs or alcohol. I enjoy, a drink here at night or whatever, but nothing crazy. Yeah. I think the worst habit is maybe that I like to eat more than I need to late at night, but it hasn't caught up with me yet. So I'm okay with it for now. Yeah,
man, you look like you're pretty fit. So
yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm winning that battle for now. So.
Yeah, well, hang on there, man. Have you traveled any places cool that you really like through work?
I've traveled a lot of cool places through work, which I've definitely enjoyed. Most of it's been United States. The only Europe stuff I've done is just one gig in Austria with Gloria, which was super cool. Gloria did a lot of dates in Mexico, in Central and South America, so I saw a lot of Central and South America, which was great. And with the touring with various artists and definitely the Bacon Brothers, I've been across the U.S. and seen a lot of the cool cities. And the Americas, it's a beautiful country. There's so many. Every city has its own little vibe and its own thing, and it's really cool to get out there and see those different places. And I think on just the Bacon Brothers tour, I saw Niagara Falls, which I never saw before, which was cool. And we went to some cities that I'd been in before, but I got to see some areas I hadn't seen, like in Chicago and Cleveland and Nashville and stuff. So, cool. Yeah. So nothing in particular, but definitely, I love getting out there and seeing the country for sure.
2 more questions, man, and I appreciate your time. Toughest decision you ever had to make, or the hardest thing you ever had to do?
Toughest decision I ever had to make. Let's see. I think it would probably be nothing in particularly personal comes up, but it's some of those personal decisions of ending a relationship or moving on from something. I struggled with that, I think, when I was younger, and I've fortunately gotten to a really good place and actually, I think when I was in my 20s, I did a whole lot of soul searching and figured stuff out. So, no one in particular decision strikes me, but just being able to navigate the decisions of, okay, this is something, whether it's a relationship or a business environment or whatever else, this isn't healthy, or this isn't something I want to be involved in, and moving on from that. I know a lot of people struggle with that and have a hard time, getting out of situations that aren't for the best. And I've really, really worked hard and kind of pride myself on the fact that I only try to stay involved in situations where it's someplace I want to be with people I want to be involved with. And that is happiness to me. It's being around, whether it's work or personal or marriage or whatever, just being around a healthy, happy environment as much as possible. That was the first question. What was the second question?
No, it was toughest decision you had to make or hardest thing you had to do. So
hardest thing to do. Yeah. I mean, it's because it's tough and hard to walk away from, even a good gig if it's just not a healthy situation, or a paying gig if it's not a healthy situation. So those are the toughest things, and the personal thing of, if there's certain people that, you don't want to work with or whatever, having to say, pass on it or whatever, even if it's a good opportunity. But fortunately, at least on a business sense, all those, everything I'm doing now is wonderful. All the people I'm working with is wonderful. I think it's more, relationships and stuff like that, personal relationships, that can be tough.
Good for you, man. Yeah, I'm really similar to that. I can't be around a toxic. Right. I just won't do it. I had a guy call me the other day, and could have been an opportunity, and just the guy, the way he was, everything about him. I needed a shower when I like got off the phone. It was just like, you know, I don't even know if there was money involved. I mean, there probably could have been money. I didn't even want to, I just knew this was not someone,
right.
You know, for millions of, it's not my deal, man. So I feel you on that. And the last question is, what's the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years? And how much of this change has been deliberate, or how much is just a part of aging?
Biggest, let's see. I think that I'm always trying to be really conscientious about and proving on it, you know, on myself and for myself, for my family, for my career, whatever, whether it's musical stuff or personal stuff. I mean, my wife and I have been married almost 10 years now, and there's
congratulations. That's good. That's great.
Thank you. No, she's amazing. So there's been a lot of, you know, I thought I had a really good handle on myself and, you know, relationships and stuff before that. But now, you know, I know that if I went back to 10 years ago when we were first married, it's constantly, you know, I'm constantly trying to improve, you know, be sure that I'm moving in the right direction and that we're together moving in the right direction. And that not just with the marriage, but with business stuff or whatever, just always trying to keep a good handle on myself and be sure that I'm staying positive and moving forward, not backwards.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that's important, man. When you have someone that you're on this, and it's interesting what you said. You said I want to make sure we both stay in the same path. It's tough to do that because you really have no control over the other person's path. You know,
right, and exactly. No,
yeah.
And it's you know, marriage is an amazing thing. It's a lot of it's
work. Yeah, it's
work, but it's so worth it. And now that we have a child, it's you know, it's even more important that we make it work for our child, for our daughter. You know.
Well, and I'm sure in the back of your mind is because you came out of a divorce situation, so you're willing to do the extra. Yeah, I totally get that. Right. It's funny because I've been with my wife 26 years, and honestly, I don't know how I got that good fortune to do that, but people say, well, what's the secret? I'm like, man, I think it's a lot of luck involved because we work hard, but like I know I can't control what's going on in her head. I mean, we just happen to. For me, I think we're lucky that we still have the same things we enjoy together. We could still laugh. And I think there's a lot of luck in there, to be honest with you. So
there's certainly, you know, there's certainly that. And there's also just, people certainly change, over time, but, getting back to that whole personal thing of, you know, making sure that you found somebody that you know, you're compatible with at the time, knowing that you want to, you know, that this is an important decision and this is important. And even if they change, not, you know, if they want to try something different, just being supportive of them, even if it's not what naturally comes to you and whatnot. So it's a challenge, but it's also one of the most amazing things in life.
If it's working, yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's good. Oh, because when you'll see, man, like I'm 54 and we see people all the time now. They're like, he's got a life. They're married, but it's like he's doing his thing. She's doing her thing. Maybe they connect. Maybe they don't. Maybe they have sex. Maybe they don't. Maybe they go away together. Maybe they don't. And it's like, you look at that and like, you don't want to judge it, but like, I said, man, that wouldn't work for me. You know, I just feel lucky when I see that. I'm like, okay, so, you know, I'm just grateful that whatever little thing we got here, somehow we got the magic still in it, man. So,
absolutely.
Well, man, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really appreciate it. You've been real generous with your time. I want to tell people where to find you and how to find you. It's Tim Quick. First of all, you can find him on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube at Tim Quick Music. Quick is Quick, obviously. And he's going to be playing with School of Rock. If you're in the New York City area, if you're headed over there, grab some tickets because the show closes January 20th, 2019, and go support Tim and say hi to him. Check out the Bacon Brothers when they go on tour. Look at their website. Probably won't be for a while, but come out and see Tim. The band's great. And you do tracks also?
I do tracks and, obviously cues for TV and stuff like that. So if there's anybody's looking for music, by all means, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. You can contact you through your website. It's probably a contact. Yep. Okay, great. Go to Tim Quick. Is it just timquick.com?
timquick.net.
timquick.net. And so hook up with Tim. He's a phenomenal player and a very bright guy, as you have heard. So if you are not sure of something, don't worry. He won't let you fall through the cracks. Man, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. My pleasure. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thanks again to Tim Quick for spending time with us. Go out and support Tim and his music with the Bacon Brothers, School of Rock, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Tim Quick Music. And make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get on our newsletter list right now. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.